Oy, 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 oy. Stormy weather. Happy New Year. I'm still struggling to be camera worthy. This is probably the 10th attempt I'm doing to shoot this video today. I spent the past 2 weeks drinking and boozing and eating. Everything was on every table around every places I've been, and I feel yucky, I feel fat, I feel hangovered, and I really don't know why as a human race we impose this to ourselves every year, but fine. Here we are. I'm sure you feel just as wonderful as I do, so let's jump right in. And today, for my very first 2019 review, I thought we take a look at somewhat of a big deal component, the Tomahawk, the MSI MAG Z390 Tomahawk. And that is a motherboard which is a big deal for the industry and a big deal for MSI in particular, because this is one of its very best seller and a motherboard that we see in a lot of rigs all around the world. And what MSI tries to do with it is to bring a more premium approach to budget gamer boards out there, and evidently there are a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure on MSI team and engineering department to get this motherboard right. So without any further ado, let's try to jump right in. Oh my god, I need more coffee. Recently, MSI has reclassified its entire production of motherboard, giving us 3 distinct categories: the MEG, the MPG, and the MAG. What the MAG series is attempting to deliver to us is a reliable, good quality, performance, not too expensive, great, good looking motherboard. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. The MAG Z390 Tomahawk comes in an ATX form factor, meaning 24.4 cm wide for 30.5 cm long. It is powered by an LGA1151 socket, which can support both the 8th and 9th generation of Intel i-Core processors. VRM-wise, our processor is powered by 8 faces, and this is great because this is exactly what we need to power absolutely everything in the 8th and 9th generation of i-Core processors. But there are some limitations. When I tested this motherboard with the i9 9900K, I did see some thermal throttling. The VRMs did overheat quite a bit, despite the fact that MSI did provide an extended heatsinks on its 6 upper faces. And it's not a deal breaker in the sense that this board will run and overclock anything else. Anything in the 8th generation of Intel processors and anything in the 9th generation. The only caveat is if you are going to go for the most expensive and rare 8 physical core processors, the 9900K, if you are going to overclock it, you will find yourself with limitation, with some thermal throttling, which again is something is not so surprising and present in all the motherboards at this budget segment. Alright, so moving on to the RAM, we have the usual dual channel configuration, which can support up to 64 GB of DDR4 RAM, overclockable up to 4.4 GHz, and that's pretty good because that is 133 MHz more than on the equivalent boards in its competition. Staying in the memory, this board can support up to 2 M.2 solid-state drive. Our Z390 chipset is Optane ready, meaning that they can swap data up to 32 gigabit per second each. And that's great, but of course this will, as usual, generate a lot of heat and potentially cause some thermal throttling. And that is why MSI has provided, at least on one of the M.2 solid-state drive, a thermo shield, which itself is equipped with a thermopad. But I do need to remark that our longer M.2 solid-state drive is placed right next to the PCIe Express, which will support the video card. And video cards produce a lot of heat, and this M.2 solid-state drive did not come with a thermo shield, so there will be probably a lot of heat transfer going both ways with both those components, the video card and the M.2 solid-state drive, and it will for sure thermo throttle quite a bit. So if you are going to use an M.2 solid-state drive boot, if you want to boot from your M.2 solid-state drive, I would strongly suggest that you use a second shorter connector, which is provided with a thermo shield and a thermopad, and which most likely will not find itself trapped under a video card. Moving on, we have 5 third generation PCIe Express slots, 2 single speed single lanes and 3 16 lanes with different speeds. Only the closest one to the processor can deliver up to 16 full bus speeds. Therefore, this is where you want your video card to be for optimal performances, and that is why it has been metallically reinforced as well, because this is the PCIe Express slots which will more likely support the heavy weight of our video card. The second and third 16-lane PCIe Expresses are respectively capped at 4 and 1 full bus speed, and that's why they don't have any metallically reinforcement, because they are not meant to be used with video cards. Giving those kind of limitations, of course and obviously, the MAG Z390 Tomahawk is a single GPU motherboard. This is not SLI compliant. You cannot use 2 NVIDIA video cards at the same time, and even though it is crossfire compliant, meaning you can use theoretically 2 AMD Radeon video cards on this, I wouldn't suggest it. I strongly advise against it, simply because the second PCIe Expresses will give you just 4 bus speed, and the 2 cards will be running at 4 bus speed because they will run at the slowest available on your motherboard, and it'll be dangerous to your hardware because the second 16 lane has not been metallically reinforced. Moving on to our back I/O. First, I want to note that we do have an integrated shield on this motherboard, which at this price point I don't think I've ever seen, so major kudos to MSI for this. Starting from the left, we have our keyboard PS2 connector, 2 second generation USB plugs which can transfer data up to 480 megabit per second, our usual display and HDMI video port for our integrated CPU graphics, 4 3.1 second generation USB plugs which can transfer data up to 10 gigabit per second, including a Type-C. We have 2 LAN 1 gigabit plugs, and again, that is luxury. I've never seen 2 LAN plugs on such a cheap motherboard. When I say cheap, I mean such an affordable motherboard. So again, kudos to MSI for this. And finally, our 8-channel audio interface. Now, as you can see, there are no Wi-Fi adapter on this motherboard, but please do not be alarmed, since we do have an NVIC adapter right here. And again, that is something I absolutely love seeing. This is an easy way to upgrade your motherboard connectivity to an 802.11 AC Wave 2 standard, which will be able to transfer data up to 1.73 gigabit per second and a little bit more. So that's really important for gamers out there, and that's really an intelligent and affordable way to use inherent ability of the Z390 chipset, because the 802.11 AC standard is nested in our chipset, in the Z390 chipset. That's one of the very few upgrades we have from the Z370 to the Z390 chipset. So kudos to MSI for using absolutely every single features available on the new chipset. SATA wise, we have 6 third generation SATA plugs which can all transfer up to 6 gigabit per second each, and which can all support RAID configuration 0, 1, 5 or 10. One more little thing I'd like to note is the fact that there's a bit more space between each pair of SATA plugs, and that is particularly useful when you're trying to do some clean and nice, lean and easy access cable management in your build. So kudos to MSI for this. Front panel wise, we have a couple of second generation USB plugs right here. I love the fact that it's written USB between the pins. I think it's so much easier and clearer for first time builders and even for any builders at any time. And having more than one is always a good idea, since even your all-in-one water cooling system will need one of them for power, as well as your intelligent power supply unit. So kudos to MSI for this. We have 2 3.1 first generation USB plugs right here, which can both transfer data up to 5 gigabit per second. Okay, so we've seen the general features of our motherboard. Now let's jump right in its enthusiastic aspects. And we're going to start with 7 PWM fan connectors, one of which can support either all-in-one water pump or a dedicated 5-watt water pump. And this is kind of a drawback for me, because I do like to see 2 water pump connectors, just in the case you want to go completely crazy and kind of experiment and add, I don't know, 2 component water-cooled configuration or custom water cooling systems. All the way in the corner of our board, we have an easy debug LED, and that is something I love seeing. It's not something I usually see at that price point. Again, that's something who's usually reserved for $200 and up motherboards, and I'm delighted to see it here. It's gonna help us troubleshooting our board first on the first boot, and if any problems occur, it will allow us to know at what level the board is stopping or what's going on with the LED coding for RAM, for memory, video card, etc., etc. And since we don't have a QLED screen here, I think this is really necessary and a very, very good idea from MSI to add it here. Kudos to MSI for this again. RGB wise, we have two addressable RGB strips who's been nested on the PCB of our motherboard. One right on the very edge of the motherboard itself and one right under our chipset heat shield. If that's not enough, we also have two Mystic compatible RGB connectors right here, and in addition an RGB addressable connector right here, which I absolutely love. Again, something I am not used to see at this price level, and you can tell that MSI has put some serious thought and focus on indeed the aesthetic of its MAG series. So in conclusion, the MSI MAG Z390 Tomahawk will cost you about $160 before taxes, more or less. And there are two real questions you want to ask yourself. First, is it worth $160? Short answer to this is absolutely yes. There are some limitations, we'll talk about that in a bit. But for $160, we have features which usually are not there. The integrated I/O shield, the easy debugger. We have the possibility to upgrade the connectivity of the motherboard through the NVIC adapter. And we have two Ethernet LAN. Those, again, are features which usually are reserved for more expensive motherboard. I also want to say and mention the fact that it's clear that MSI is going through some kind of manufacturing transition because they have a better component integration. The board are more robust. There's a higher precision of build. You can feel it at every turn during the review process and the testing of the motherboard. So that's something really important when talking about the MAG series. So yeah, so $160, you're getting its worth and beyond. The second question is, should you buy it? And that is really up to you. If you are looking for a board which will deliver awesome performances, great quality and looks great, this is where your money wants to be. But if you're the kind of builder and the kind of gamer who's gonna go for something you want to upgrade later on, say you want to add a second video card, or if you want to overclock very, very powerful processors such as a 8 physical core 9900K, then that's not where you want to be. You want to spend more money, you want to get out of the 160 to 180 markets and go more around 200 plus dollar motherboard. And there you'll have real features which are designed to support dual video cards technologies such as SLI and Crossfire, and more phases or even heavier heatsink, so better cooling system so that your VRMs stay cool, even in extreme overclocking. So I hope I got that across. And that's really up to you guys. That really depends on what you're looking for and what kind of computer you're going with. But if you are a first-time builder with, say, a budget of $800 to $1,000, a rather short gamer budget, then this is where you want to be. This is where your money needs to be to get the most and 99% of the features that more expensive motherboard can give you.